Call me Ishmael. I'm a sailor, and my happiest days have been spent at sea. I've had many exciting adventures in the watery part of the world, as I like to call it, but none as thrilling and terrifying as the search for Moby Dick. Yes, I was part of the attempt to kill the cunning white whale, and this is my story. I left Manhattan and arrived in New Bedford, Massachusetts, on a Saturday evening in December 1851. My plan was to catch a ferry from New Bedford to Nantucket so that I could join the crew of a Nantucket whaling ship. The Nantucket whaling business was a growing industry at that time, with hundreds of ships leaving American shores each year to hunt and kill sperm whales for their oil. The oil, which was extracted from the whale's fat or bubbler, was used for lighting oil lamps and making candles and was considered particularly valuable. I had always been fascinated by the beauty and greatness of whales. They lived in wild and distant seas, and I knew that whale hunting would provide me with the opportunity to explore exotic faraway places. Unfortunately, I missed the ferry to Nantucket and discovered to my disappointment that the next ferry was scheduled to leave on Monday. With only a few cents in my pocket, I was forced to search for some very cheap accommodation. I made my way through the dark, bitterly cold streets of New Bedford, gazing into the candlelit windows of various inns until I found one that looked affordable. The swinging sign above the door read, "The Spouter Inn." The owner's name, Peter Coffin, was painted in white underneath. I walked into the inn and found it full of sailors who were chatting merrily. After a brief search, I located the landlord and told him I wished to rent a room. "No rooms left, I'm afraid," said Coffin. "But there is one bed left. Would you mind sharing a room with a harpooner?" I did mind. In fact, I minded very much. But the landlord insisted that the harpooner was a decent fellow and managed to persuade me that sharing a room with a perfect stranger was a much better option than spending the night out in the cold. "All right," I said. "I suppose I have no choice." "Good," said Coffin. "Take a seat in the dining room and I'll bring you some dinner." I made my way to the dining room and sat down at the table. Without delay, Coffin brought me a meal consisting of very generous portions of meat, potatoes, and dumplings. The food was absolutely delicious, and I quickly devoured every last bite. "Say, Mr. Coffin," I said as the landlord cleared away my plate, "is the harpooner here?" Coffin chuckled. "No, he won't be back till much later. He's out selling his head." "His head?" I exclaimed. "What on earth do you mean?" "The harpooner has just returned from New Zealand, where he collected some human heads," the landlord explained. I could hardly believe my ears. "Mr. Coffin, are you mad?" I shouted. "Are you really planning to put me in a room with someone who's out selling human heads?" Coffin grinned. "Calm down, young man. The heads are made of wax. I think I assure you that the harpooner poses no threat to you. Anyway, it's almost midnight and I doubt he'll be returning to the inn tonight. Let me show you to your room. I'm sure you'd like to get some sleep." Reluctantly, I followed the landlord up the staircase to a small room at the end of the narrow passageway. The room was nice. The landlord wished me good night, and I put on my nightwear and went to sleep. I was awakened an hour or so later by the sound of the door opening. The harpooner had returned. I decided to remain perfectly still and not say a word until my roommate noticed me. The harpooner was a huge man holding a candle in his hands. The light from the candle was weak, and I could only just see his face, and I assumed he was having tattoos on his face. I had never seen a more terrifying-looking man in my life ever before. The harpooner changed into his nightwear, and he was about to sleep. My heart was beating so loudly, I could hear it beating in my ears. I jumped out of the bed and ran to the door. The harpooner sat up in surprise. "Who's there?" he shouted. "Please don't hurt me," I cried. "Landlord, Mr. Coffin, someone please save me." The landlord heard my screams and he came into the room. "Don't be afraid," said the landlord, as he helped me to my feet. "Quick egg won't harm you." "Are you sure about that?" I said. The landlord laughed. "Quick egg, young Ishmael is here. He'll be sharing your room with you tonight. Is that all fine?" Quick was silent for a moment. That's fine, he grunted. The next morning, we woke up early and made our way to the dining room. We enjoyed our breakfast to the fullest. Once we had eaten, Quick lit his pipe and made his way to the lunchroom, and I decided to go for a stroll. I returned to the inn after lunch and found the harpooner sitting in front of the fireplace. I never wanted to spend my day by myself. I pulled a chair and sat down beside him. "Are we going to share a room again tonight?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "In that case, we are brothers." We shook our hands. We spent the rest of the day talking and getting to know one another better. Quick told me that he was a native of the South Pacific island of Rokovoko. His father had been the king of his tribe, and Quick was the next in line to take his place. But the young Quick wanted adventure. So one day he hid on the ship and ran away. Quick became an expert harpooner, known for his skill and accuracy. Quick told me that he wanted to go on a whaling trip. "Really?" I asked with delight. "I'm also going to Nantucket to find a whaling ship." "Well, we'll go together," said Quick with a smile. "After all, we are brothers now." After supper, we returned to our room, and Quick gave me $30 silver. I told him I couldn't take it, of course, but he wouldn't listen to me. He said in his culture that it was customary to share one's belonging with one's family members. I felt extremely touched by Quick's kindness and generosity. It felt good to make a new friend.